Good to be with you here on this fine Tuesday, the pre-Thanksgiving special. We will be with you again tomorrow. And, of course, we have something special cooked up for Thursday and Friday as well. So if you're watching on Ion Channel, you're not going to get jobbed on the holidays. You have a nice prelude into that trio of games, which includes the Lions and the Bears. I have to check this out. Now, the Bears are favored in this game by 3 and a hook. Don't you love the Lions in this ballgame? Mike Lubie, all the signs.
Yeah.
From the gods of gambling. All of the signals from the gods of gambling are pointing in the direction of the Detroit Lions to win on Thanksgiving Day. So they're beleaguered fans. I mean, you talk about whoever is left being a Lions fan. You talk about loyalty. That's loyalty. See, we hang on to very small things here. The Dolphins have won 3 games in a row, and now everybody's getting a little giddy. Oh, yeah, they're going to make it 7, which leads me to believe the confidence with which people are looking at this current Dolphin winning streak and the possibility that they could be 7-7 because they have the Giants who stunk the joint out last night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How bad is that defense of the Giants? I mean, every time I switched on the game, that was Tampa Bay just like rolling through them with dink and dunk. Tom Brady just dinking and dunking his way, for 10 yards at a clip. At what point do you just say, hey, look, let this guy beat us over the top? I know they have Godwin. I know they have Evans. They didn't have Antonio Brown last night. They got Gronk back, which was big. But how many square-ins and little out patterns can you allow Tom Brady to throw before you just say, hey, let's get after this old geezer. He's 44 years old, and let's make him look that way. I think Blanda retired before he was 44, did he not? George Blanda, who's always the example, like when you're reaching for somebody who's like really old that was still playing a sport. It's always, well, he's older than George Blanda was when he retired. Did Blanda make it to like 46 or 7? Which it appears Brady is destined to do. I mean, there's no sign that Tom Brady is slowing down, is there? Because is that by league mandate? Check with Ron DeSantis there. Is that a mandate of some sort that you have to allow Brady 12 yards to throw the football before you're allowed to pick up any of his receivers in the defensive backfield? Because, wow, they made it look easy last night against the New York Football Giants, who got their 7 points on a Brady pick, which was not his fault. I mean, he hits the guy in the shoulder pads. Mike Evans, very reliable receiver, must have taken his eye off the ball for a second. Pops in the air. Giants recover, get it at the 5-yard line. They run Daniel Jones, your man. You know what? You might have been right about Daniel Jones. I might have been wrong. Yeah, I said it like Fonzie. I might have been wrong, Lubie. Because Daniel Jones does not look like the real deal. And the question of the week is, and this has been going on for several years, how does Dave Gettleman, the GM of the Giants, you're on Chris Greer? This guy's a disaster so far.
Worst.
A disaster. I mean, they're bad. So anyway, they got Saquon Barkley back in the ballgame last night. Why was it necessary to run a token run up the middle with Barkley for like 1 yard when you know he's going to get crushed like a grape? Everybody in the house knew they were going to hand the ball off to Barkley on the first play, and he's going to take it right into. I'm making that noise a lot now on the show. Is that something I should
it's fine.
Shake out of the repertoire here? Goes right into the line and gets crushed like a grape. And you're thinking they're going to cart this guy off the field if the Giants keep doing this. But ugliness 30-10 last night to wind up week number 11 of the National Football League season, which cranks up again with a big triple header, as we mentioned, and that is just 2 days away. Am I crazy? Are the Lions not destined to win this game on Thursday to open things up? They've been in every ball game this year and haven't been able to manage a win. They did manage one tie against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's just this Sunday, they lost to the Cleveland Browns 13-10. That started a lot of bitching and moaning and a lot of contretemps among the Browns faction. As Baker Mayfield's wife says, you ought to get tough like my man Baker.
There you go.
That probably plays well with some 320-pound solid muscle defensive lineman who's been in there schwitzing while Baker's handing the ball off to Nick Chubb when he's in the lineup. And throwing a couple of errant passes and making a lot of commercials. Baker Mayfield has become the modern-day Peyton Manning.
Yes.
Do you go to Home Depot because Baker Mayfield seems to be living at the
Definitely.
ballpark? I never thought about that.
No.
All right, we often talk about teams that come back from the dead and players that come back from the dead. There's a guy, and this story struck me right out of the chute here this morning as I was reading my New York Post on the throne. And not that you need that graphic image. Boy, that is an ugly image, huh? right? You open the door at the airport to one of the stalls and there's a guy in there. Yeah, sorry. Now you're grossed out for the entire flight. Forget about it. I mean, I don't care if you're going cross country, 6 hours it takes to recover from an ugly, shocking scene like that. But there's a guy who actually came back from the dead, Lubie. An Indian man, this is of Indian descent, not Native American, was declared dead after a road accident and put in a morgue freezer. How about this?
Jeez.
You ready for this? Where his family found him alive the next day.
Oh, my God.
They literally buried this guy alive.
Oh, Jesus.
The guy's name was Srikesh Kumar. Srikesh Kumar. He's 45 years old. He was hit by a motorcycle in an accident and then declared dead on arrival at a private clinic before he was taken to a government hospital. And the hospital declared him dead and put him in the morgue. He was in the freezer. God. He was on ice for like about, I guess, 6 hours. His family showed up. They noticed him moving.
Oh, no. Oh, God.
He's still in a coma, but that couldn't have helped the cause any, right? They just throw the guy. Put him on ice. That was it. They put him in the freezer. They literally did. And he was alive the whole time, or at least barely so. But yeah, teams coming back from the dead. And that's what people think the Dolphins are doing, coming back from the dead, 1-7, 7 in a row in a losing column. And on top of that, some real ugly ones. And then they scrape out a win against the Houston Texans, who all of a sudden are decent after getting off to a just incredibly bad start. Well, they got Tyrod Taylor. At least they have a serviceable quarterback. Is that what we're going to be saying about Tua Tagovailoa? Because you would think this was a Zapruder film, the way they're examining this long pass that he threw, which wasn't, the guy was so wide open that you couldn't miss him, but he actually had to turn around to make the catch. It wasn't like this pass was right on the money. This was not Dan Marino throwing one of those things that you rate with style points. Look at that trajectory. That was an 87-degree angle there, and the velocity on that ball was just exceptional. It was a decent pass, but to a wide open guy. It was like one of those guys in the Steve Spurrier offense back in the day when he was coaching the Gators. Where Danny Warfel was throwing balls that looked like they should invoke the infield fly rule, but guys were so wide open in this fun and gun that he was running. Or was that the offense,
yes.
The way they described the fun and gun?
Fun and gun, good man.
Fun and gun, man. And guys were waving out there, here, Danny, here. And they're open by like 20 yards. I mean, you couldn't miss them, which was the case there with this Tua pass. But I would venture to say that I've seen this pass replayed at least 100 times by the local news people who are just absolutely blown away that Tua could throw the ball down the field after watching this guy for a season and a half, which you could say very much in the honor of John Feinstein being present on the show today, or planning to be on the show today, that this was very much and still remains a season on the brink.
Yes.
But I can't believe how many times they've shown this same replay. All right, a lot of things happening all around the board, including the Juicers being eligible for the Hall of Fame.
Since day one of Old School, we've had Catholic Health Services be part of our family. They are recognized as the quintessential rehab facility in the Southeast for strokes, but it goes well beyond strokes because Catholic Health Services is in the community of South Florida to help the community stay healthy, and if they're not healthy, get them healthy and get them back on their feet quicker than they could have ever expected. They do it every single day. It's step and repeat, 24/7. Catholic Health Services.
Here's a man of style and class, Joe Frisaro, going to join us. Just a couple of notes. Joe, how are you, by the way? Thanks for coming on the show.
Defo, Lubie, how you guys doing? I'm doing great.
We're doing fine, and we want to get into some baseball stuff with you. But a news item from the Gambling Gourmet, and I'm not sure exactly how to interpret this, but federal judge tosses out Seminole sports betting compact in Florida.
Nice.
So that was going to be in the courts, so they already found some federal judge or whatever other factions are involved here that say, you know what, we can't let those guys control everything.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure what that means for the future, the immediate future and or the long-term future of sports betting in South Florida, but it had already started. So does this guy have any jurisdiction over there on 441? Like when you make a right on Lucky Street, you're on, Native American territory there, and, they're kind of immune from any federal law. So we'll see what happens with that. Joe, how are you, my friend? Good to have you on the program.
Oh, doing great, Defo. Doing great.
All right. And we were talking earlier about the Hall of Fame, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but just curious. And You have the theory out there was that Bonds and Clemens would maybe eventually get in because other juicers or presumed juicers have made their way into the Baseball Hall of Fame. People were questioning Piazza. Bagwell certainly might qualify as somebody that was suspect at least. But the theory was, Joe, that you would have these guys get in after their final year of eligibility came up, which is this year. Do you believe that will be the case?
Oh boy, for Bonds and Clements, I think it's still a long road. I'm a few years away from qualifying from voting. If I did have a vote, I would vote for them. I think that there probably is enough whispers to know that there are people in the hall that may not have been all in the up and up, but those also guys were the two greatest players I ever covered in terms of
exactly
position player and pitcher. Yeah, I mean, those guys would have my vote. The interesting thing with Bonds was, when he was the hitting coach down here in 2016, he really endeared himself to the media, the same people that he spent, a long career keeping at arm's length, to say the least. And I think he kind of had fun here, even interacting with the media. And he even, spoke that one of his regrets was that he probably could have been a little nicer, which may have gotten him some remorse in his actions that people think or accusing him of doing.
A little nicer might be an understatement there. I think Matt Williams, when he was with the Giants, got more interviews because of the fact that that throne that Barry had in the locker room was seldom occupied during the time when reporters were in the clubhouse there.
Yeah. I was happened to be in the Giants clubhouse one time when Barry was there, and he was on. It is nice. He had his throne, but in all fairness, when at the old Marlins Park there, I kind of had my little throne over in the corner for my seniority for my post game interviews with the manager. But I just
throne to throne, literally.
I tried not to be as evil to my peers, though.
All right, so that's happening, and now A-Rod gets on the list, and we've been speculating that the next time A-Rod says something interesting as a color commentator on a baseball game will be the first time that he ever said anything interesting. Well, what, Joe Frisaro, in your opinion, is the fascination with A-Rod other than his at one time arrangement that he had with J-Lo?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of became very compelling, and he's very marketable now. He's all over Sunday Night Baseball, and
he's
now
on Shark Tank, for God's sake.
Yeah, A-Rod's everywhere, and the only place he may not be is the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
yes.
He's going to be kind of the same fate that Barry and Roger. He's in the era of performance enhancing drugs, and he was attached to it. And I'd be kind of stunned if he got in at least right away. I mean, there's no disputing the talent. I mean, that's the thing. It's just going to be, I think the younger voters, a lot more tolerant and see some of the hypocrisy of some of the hardline stances and other players, or what are we voting on? I always looked at it this way, guys. If their name was on the ballot, I think you should have not. Why do you put that in the BBWA's hands? It's like, I think if you don't feel the hall wants them on for reasons, and I know they're staunch, the Bob Costases, the Tom Verducci's, and I respect their stance as well. But these guys' names are on the ballot, which puts it in the hands of the writers to play judge, jury, moral authority, moral compass. I mean, you mentioned Schilling before we went to break. I mean, here's a guy I didn't know if Schilling performance-wise I would have voted for him, but he's offended like everyone in America about 4 times, and it's not
taking most of their money too, I think, in the process.
It's usually the best way to go about winning support when you need 75% of a generally skeptical group to begin with.
Well, who fleeced more investors, Lenny Dykstra or Kurt Schilling? That would be also a consideration.
That's the thing. You're getting on all these lines. But like I said, my thing with like A-Rod, there's no doubting the numbers, that he's Hall of Famer. I'm probably get yelled at by those that are Schilling defenders in terms of his numbers. I didn't know if he was there as a pitcher. I know he was great in the postseason. If you just look at his body of work, was that a Hall of Fame body of work? I'm not convinced it was. Sometimes pitching's getting a little cloudier now with, like I didn't know if Mussina was, but there was a longevity thing. 200 wins is now the 300 wins. There's a lot that goes on for pitchers to begin with, but those are guys, obviously it makes it compelling and it makes, conversational, and really there's no real answers because we have these same conversations every year. Exactly. But I do think that, I do like to think the greatest players of all time should be in Cooperstown, or if in one shape or form. I know there's the Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe, the whole gambling thing, but now, we're going to have gambling in baseball, in terms of sponsoring and prop betting and so forth are on the way. I just think there's a lot of cloudy, issues, but I think moving forward, the voting body will be a little more tolerant of what my generation and before was a lot more hard line.
We're talking with Joe Frisaro, longtime baseball writer, covered the Marlins for a long time, founder of Man on Second. He's also a contributor with 5 Reasons Sports, where you can also find us here on Ion Channel. Yeah. You can also find us 5 Reasons Sports later in the day. Find him on Twitter at Joe Frisaro. Joe, I find it interesting and actually impressive, your stance, because you just said it. A lot of the baseball writers, and they're not all Bob Costas. Plenty of guys are in their 30s and 40s, but we know baseball is a very traditionalist sport. And look, I used to have that stance when it comes to this stuff. My problem is when you're picking and choosing, well, we like Bonds. We hate Bonds, so we can't get in, but we like Bagwell. Who used roids more? At least Bonds felt like a Hall of Famer most of his career. Bagwell, we don't know what he would have been. I think that's a weird game to play, and I'm actually impressed by you saying, look, who cares? Schilling may not have been because of numbers, but if you have the numbers, you should get in.
Yeah, I mean, there is other factors. I mean, there are things that I think you could do to disqualify yourself. The whole PED era came during a time where most of it was before testing. I mean, the NFL, I covered the NFL for the Tampa Tribune well, way back in the day. And a lot of players that were accused are in the Hall of Fame in that era, but there was no real pushback, the NFL, unlike to me, Major League Baseball likes to basically eat its own and devour itself more than probably any other sport. The other sports would kind of hey, look, maybe some bad things went on, but we're not really going to go nuts. So reminding everyone about it. But in baseball, we find it perfectly fine to suspend the best players in the game and do it unabashedly, which not to say that that's a wrong stance, except for what if you just told your audience? You just told your audience that we're kind of a little bit of skeptical sport sometimes. But, that said, it's, there are rules, there are standards and guidelines. You just don't know whether they're evenly. And I never really felt like, I don't know. I mean, even knowing Bonds, I don't know exactly what he did. I don't know what, how much or whatnot. The guy, Canseco with the book, he kind of exposed all of it. And initially in his book at the end, he was like, hey, look, it's not, how did he say? I don't want to misquote it, but it was almost like it's not the worst thing in the world because if you take stuff in moderation, it's not necessarily hurtful to the body and, that type of stuff. And then he kind of changed his stance a little bit when it got, a lot more, publicity. But I know, guys, I always and I even mention this to some of my friends in the Players Association, say, why don't you, if guys feel the need that the game is played every day and wear and tear is such a big part of baseball for 162 games over 6 months of literally playing every day, but maybe like 4 days off a month, why don't you make like a legal performance enhancing supplement that players can take? Because isn't that really what it's down to? Yep. I don't think guys were really taking for an edge and strength. Anyone who trains is looking to get an edge in strength training and whatnot, but why don't you develop something that, would make guys, feel healthy enough to be on the field every day, which doesn't feel like it's we're at a horse event or whatever where you're juicing up a horse to go win the Kentucky Derby. I always wondered why you can't, there's enough out there. There's enough, good legal over the counter products. Why can't they do that? But that's a story for another day.
Exactly.
Bob Baffert will be the next commissioner. I think the scene that epitomized, and you have to also say, and this factors into this Hall of Fame argument, you're looking at a game that was condoning this. I mean, Bud Selig is there giving Pentangeli testimony saying he knew nothing about this. And there's Canseco sitting next to him with like a syringe in Bud's neck as he's speaking and saying, well, we don't know nothing about this. So, it would seem to be something that was overlooked in the game. The game was kind of flattening out a little bit in public opinion. All of a sudden, everybody's hitting home runs. That's all anybody was talking about. And, it couldn't have been any more of a spark for the game at the time to have the assault on virtually all of these records. Quick thought, Joe Frisaro, and we thank you so much for being with us. The Marlins who you cover and have been very tightly entwined with there in terms of reporting for many, many years. They make a big move there yesterday, signed Sandy Alcantara. We don't know what that means. We're what now? Is this the fourth year of the new Jeter Bruce Sherman regime? And we don't really have any great definition. We thought maybe we were onto something last year, but that kind of fell apart. Where do we stand with this team? And should we be looking at the Marlins under the light of is this going to go on forever? This so-called rebuilding, stripped down process.
Yeah, we're in year 5, and yeah, there's need for progress coming off a 95 loss season. Locking up your best player is never a bad thing, especially when he's entering arbitration and you're trying to convince not just your fan base but your audience, your other players in baseball who know that the Marlins have had a history of trading away players. So locking up Sandy for 5 years, 55, 60, whatever the number ends up being, is a very good start. That's it's at least a sign to the players on the roster. Obviously you have Miguel Rojas is locked up for a year or two with the club option. But you getting your best pitcher who's reaching his prime years, that's a smart move. And so, yes, that's a good start to an off season that the Marlins have high expectations on. And, he's a really good pitcher. And so it's a really good sign. And I tweeted out yesterday that it's significant obviously for fans who are skeptical, but for other free agents, because there are free agents that are looking and saying, look, if I get $100 million from the Marlins and $100 million from, let's say, the Phillies, where am I going to go? I want to win. Well, the Phillies have Bryce Harper. They have, JT Realmuto. They got guys locked up. If the Marlins don't sign Sandy, you could sit around and go and say, wait a minute. What if we get off to a slow April? Is our best pitcher going to be here at the deadline in July? So it's at least shows if I'm a prospective free agent and have, I'm going to buy into the Marlins message that we got a good young core, then you go for it. So I think it's a really good move for the Marlins, and the contract still isn't going to be prohibitive to the point where they can't sign some more high profile players. And if you stink in a couple of years, you can still move them because it's a very attractive contract.
Joe Frisaro, man on second. You can catch him, great insight into baseball. Joe, thanks so much for joining us here on the show, Ion Channel. You look great, kid. And it's always a pleasure. We'll have to do it again very soon, and we'll see how all of these various things play out in Major League Baseball. Thanks so much for being with us.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye. Joe Frisaro, ladies and gentlemen.
Destination Sport Miami is here to revolutionize the sports landscape in South Florida. The largest indoor multifaceted sports complex in North America is on the way, with distinguished leaders of its various sports programs and unparalleled access to the finest indoor training fields and facilities. Destination Sport Miami will set South Florida apart as the destination of choice for elite athletic training and development, and for its dedication to youth programs and sports on all levels. A phenomenal concept and a powerful undertaking, Destination Sport Miami will also be an important commodity in the sports business community as well. Destination Sport Miami, its time has come.